that has been just trying to get, I suppose, I don't know what's the best word to describe it, like the framework down for this part 2, because I want to try and make it as practical as possible, and try and use it to get as much application of the principles as we can, like in a practical sense. So I want people to start, okay, part 1 was a lot about the theory and the framework for the business plan, but part 2, I actually want them to get in and start producing stuff, in terms of, okay, this is how it's actually going to work in your business. So get them really thinking about how to do that. So I've been giving a lot of thought to how to try and stimulate that thinking and encourage that action. So part 2 will probably have a slightly different format in the context that it's going to be informational, but then it's going to be very much about, like setting tasks for them, and also probably a little bit of revision in the sense of seeking, I suppose, like little mini quizzes just to test some of those key points that we've been making throughout part 1 and trying to reinforce in part 2. And Udemy like you to do that. They like you to have, I forget the term they use, but it's in effect just like a knowledge checkpoint. I think they call it something like that. So I've just been sort of thinking about how that might apply and make it meaningful, and also use the knowledge checkpoints as sort of reinforcement of those key principles as to how the theory is going to apply in practice, So that's what I've been kind of working on and just more thinking about. Because, I mean, we can research it until the cows come home, but the reality is that the theory is, I think, pretty well articulated, but now we need to turn the theory into practice. And that's a creative process on our part, So, I think that's, kind of where I'm at the moment. So, yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned in the email that we felt we should, our article should have a leaning towards a little bit more motivation.
Well, motivation in the sense of how to get started, if that kind of makes sense. So that sort of context, because as I said, like we've talked a lot about the theory, but I think that we need to turn the theory into practice, and bearing in mind what we're hoping to achieve for our own enterprise. I think that focus from us in terms of the articles that we're writing should be encouraging people to understand what the community of practice is about, and then what the communities of interest might be within that community of practice. So really start to encourage people to participate, and then also to share in terms of, their ideas, their suggestions, their experiences, their views about, the key principles that we've been articulating. So just try and make it motivating in the sense of get involved, participate, and share your views, So yeah. That was my sense of it anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Then I misunderstood. Okay. Did the approach I took? The approach I took with one of the last articles, where, for example, I mentioned the company you love to hate, and that's Uber, yeah. And then said, right now, showed that as an upwards. That's where everything gets extracted, all the value gets extracted. Now, if that was a platform, communal platform, then those drivers could participate locally and in the international.
And I think that's a really good approach, because basically what we're saying is, if we could rewrite history, what might this look like now if these principles had been applied, So, yeah. And I think that, again, that makes it very practical for people, because they can actually see, what some of the possibilities are, because I think for it's a bit of a generalization, but I think for some people, they struggle to see, what could have been different
Yeah.
and why that would have been important, as to why, if things had been done differently, more within that distribution model enterprise, as to what some of the community benefit that would have flowed out of that, which, quite frankly, has just flowed into the hands of a small number of individuals. So
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think uh, we give ideas of type of enterprises they could start if they were looking that way, or do you think they
um,
should arrive with thoughts? I was thinking along the lines of, for example, probably one of the most powerful and most disruptive inventions has been the 3D printer.
yeah,
Um,
and will continue to be.
Definitely will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the 3D printer, it's sort of funny because I was looking at that there just the other day. Now comes in effect 3 iterations in the one machine. So
Yeah.
it will print. It could be a CNC sort of driven laser device, to sort of print, like burn into different materials and stuff like that. And it could also, in the same sense, be a CNC like routing machine. So to create, like have a solid piece of wood. So it's almost like the opposite of what the 3D printing is. The 3D printing builds the 3D image, whereas a CNC machine sculpts the 3D image out of a piece of material. So
Yeah.
those 3 iterations are coming in the one machine pretty much now.
And
So
you can put all sorts of different materials into them. Okay.
that's right. Yeah,
Um, I mean, you can now print a human heart. Okay. I
yeah.
mean, it's absolutely amazing. And so, the space station doesn't need to have spares anymore. They just have a 3D
No,
printer.
just beam the file up. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is quite incredible when you think about it, isn't it? But anyway.
Yeah. So I think the opportunity for people looking to start business and do businesses to sort of stimulate their thinking with things like the 3D. You know, uh, do you not think that would be beneficial
Oh,
to?
absolutely. Because, and I think that's sort of almost case in point. I mean, it's like you're encouraging people to say, well, what do you think the opportunities and the possibilities will be with this technology? And more fundamentally, given the sort of business models that we're articulating,
Mm,
how do you think that might, how do you think the benefits of that might flow to the broader community? People
right.
matter, that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
reinforce
Yeah.
that, because I think it just puts a real texture to the theory. Otherwise, it's just a theory, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, Um, I like the way you put articles on the website. Well done.
Yeah. I put your articles up there. Yeah. It took me longer than I anticipated, but no, they're definitely there. Oh, and
Nice,
that's the
the
other thing.
pictures. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, okay. And the other thing I've been thinking about is, okay, what do we need to do to transform that website too? And I haven't come to any conclusions about that to write down so that we can discuss it, but I've just sort of been pondering that myself, kind of thinking that like a forum might be useful in there somewhere, but I just don't want it to be like a bog standard forum. I think we've got to think a little bit laterally about how we might encourage people to participate and that, and whether we do it
Yeah.
as a spin-off as a result of people who go through the course or who are interested in the course, or I'm just not sure yet. It's too much stuff swirling around in the head at the moment. So.
Yeah, and not enough space for,
Mm.
for in that sense. Yeah.
Time for another big download. That's right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Uh, I must get well and start writing again.
Yeah.
And
So how are your writing projects going? Are they still ticking over
Yeah,
there? Or?
I've done everything that's been asked of me. The guy with the water tanks and so on never got back to me. So
Okay.
so I'm
I
currently
I was sort of intrigued a little bit by that, because in one sense, he's almost asking you to write a book for him, but you do all of the work. You do all the research, you do all the writing, like the whole.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it, and a lot of people do that. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. I never set out to actually want to write a book for somebody. That wasn't my. I've actually gone back to my Fiverr now, and I've trimmed it a bit so that I don't get the same sort of request. I don't mind researching and doing an ebook.
Yeah.
From
So,
a few
so
pages.
yeah, there's some interesting
But writing
people
a whole
out
book
there
is
has
that
another
want to do things. We just got to, get connected with the sensible ones and get them into business.
That's right. Yeah, and show them, a whole new way of doing things. Because
Yeah.
because the pathway that it's developed over the last 20 years or so is really quite negative and destructive, really. But anyway.
One thing you might be interested, that I can't think of the author's name. The guy that wrote throwing rocks at the Google bus. Okay.
Oh, Rushkoff, is it?
Rushkoff. That's right.
Yeah,
Rushkoff.
yeah.
Now, that was his last one. Then he's just produced another one, Team something, and Sue's gone and bought them both for me. Okay.
Oh, okay. I actually
so,
haven't read the book. Where I came across him was through another forum that I subscribed to called Integral Life.
Okay.
And it's a very sort of wide-ranging, agenda and topics and that. And he was a guest speaker on one of their sessions, so he would have spent, I don't know, probably about an hour and a half being interviewed on one of their sessions. But it wasn't so much about, I mean, it was about distributism, and that. But where he was coming from that perspective was more along the lines of missed opportunities, I guess, was the way that he was sort of describing it, in that he said that when, there were big changes, like with, the internet, when it started to take off, and some of the early programs, like, I think, what was the one before Facebook? MySpace or something like that, was it? Or I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think I might have listened to that as well. What you're saying now rings a bell.
But he's also done a couple of documentaries which I've watched on YouTube, I think it was on, or might have been Vimeo. I think it might have been on Vimeo, where there's a couple of documentaries that he does with another person, and it was all around Silicon Valley and some of those sorts of things, which was really quite interesting. But it was very much about IT and the IT industry and where the industry is going, more so than the broader application of, business and community benefit and stuff like that. So, yeah.
But he does also talk. I mean, I think 3 books ago, I saw on Amazon. It had something about distribution in the title.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But the other source that I was sort of looking at too, I mean, there's some stuff on Wikipedia which takes you through a couple of different authors and that who've looked at it. But the trouble with all of it, though, that I've sort of, I won't say the trouble, the ideas are fantastic, and where it's short on, in my view, which is I kind of guess what we're trying to fill, is saying, okay, well, the theory's great, it looks great, but let's test it in practice. And there are a few businesses out there which are doing things differently, but I don't think those businesses are doing it as a result of the theory. I think the theory is sort of almost developed as a result of what these businesses are doing, I think, and that's my sense of it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
So from where I'm coming from, it's like, love a lot of the ideas, but let's be creative in our expression of it and really explore that. And that's why, for me, some of the key, or the central planks of the course are going to be is more about the business planning framework, because that's just something that you and I are creating. There's no sort of, well, not that I can see anyway, no sort of precedent for that.
Right. Right.
As soon as you talk about business planning, it's just the old, dust off Sun Tzu. Here we go again, So yeah.
Yeah. I've just finished the other book that this one I told you I was reading.
Okay. Yep.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know if it comes up there. Yeah. Just finished that, and there's a lot of stuff in the book that's given ideas that I could latch onto and use, and as far as the writing concerned, yeah. But the planning, I think you say that's going to be unique, and
absolutely is going to be unique. And I think the thing about that too, I mean, when you read, a lot of the articles, like the theory and stuff, both by Rushkoff and other people, they're talking about, the big corporations in effect. So what's the opportunity there? And they go and do a bit of analysis around, the B Corp, the benefit corporations, which are, profit for purpose type organizations and charities and stuff like that. Whereas I think the big gap in the market, for you and I is that, hey, someone is just sitting at home thinking, I'd like to start a business, like, and I think that sector of the market gets pretty much neglected. It's just like, oh yeah, whatever, like, come and talk to us when your turnover's $5 million, So,
yeah.
So, and I think that's where, for me, and that's where definitely the volume is going to be, in terms of, let's do something differently. And when you think about, businesses that spun off out of, the environmental movement, some of them were just in the traditional business mode, but there are a lot of other ones which are quite creative. Like, that link that you sent through to me about that, that water technology, getting water out of fresh air. I mean, I thought that was quite an interesting, and he also has got quite an interesting business model, So
yeah, I agree. Yeah, really is interesting. I knew you'd enjoy it. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently, sorry.
I was going to say, apparently, I looked at the value of his shares in the US market at the moment, and they're over $100 a share at the moment, US dollars a share. Okay. So he's creating a lot of wealth, but interestingly, trying to distribute that wealth back into the communities that he serves, all the technologies.
Absolutely. So he's certainly got a model. He's got an amazing product. I mean, the invention is just profound. He can give drinking water to the whole world.
Yeah, for free. In effect, for free. Basically.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know
I don't know what his technology costs, but but in essence, a machine's able to, and it's a renewable resource. He was saying that every so many hours it renews itself or something, So
that's right. And he really does. And he's also he goes and he's living sort of out of the urban area, and he's helping people on other continents.
One of the things that really struck me about when I watched some of the videos about his business is what I really loved there is one of them just stuck in my mind. He said I came at this from the assumption of abundance, the limitless resource, Right. And I thought to myself, what a fantastic starting point,
right.
Because if he hadn't,
Absolutely.
if he hadn't come from that assumption, he may well not have even discovered the full potential of what he's currently got.
Right.
Because if you go in with a limited mindset, guess what the output's going to be? But he went in with the mindset of abundance, like enough, sufficient for everyone. There's a new sort of take on sufficiency, isn't it? Sufficient for everyone.
Yeah.
In fact, I
back.
like that now that I've said that. So I like that now that I've said that, because it's sufficiency is, but it takes away from that sufficient being just enough, but sufficient for everyone is true shared prosperity, isn't it?
Sufficiency for everyone. Yeah. That is true prosperity for the community.
So yeah.